Welcome to the Master's Program in Publishing in the College of Professional Studies at George Washington University. I'm Dean Smith, and I'll be your instructor for the next 12 weeks. In this first week, we will be sharing introductions, and I will provide an overview with a special emphasis on trends in the publishing industry. My vision for you is to leave this class with the tools to advance and succeed in the rapidly changing publishing business. I'd also like to bring you up to speed on the latest technological developments so that you can help shape the future of the profession. I look forward to working with you.
Here is a structure for the lecture, and I always do this in my presentations. I like to let the audience know what's coming next, and I think it's a good thing for all of us to do when we're giving presentations. And presentations will be an important aspect of this course. You will be presenting your ideas and your publications to me and to the rest of the class over the course of the semester. I'll turn your attention now to the right of the slide where there are two book covers. I just want you to know that I published last August in 2013 the book Never Easy, Never Pretty with Temple University Press about the Baltimore Ravens Super Bowl season, and it's very much a memoir of the season from the perspective of somebody who's born and raised in Baltimore and who moved away and then came back when the Ravens won the Super Bowl in 2012, and also helped Ted Patterson update football in Baltimore. Now, Never Easy, Never Pretty came about because one of my students in this program said to me, "You really should write a book." And what she was meaning was that I should write a book on publishing. But I thought, I don't think you really can learn from a book about publishing. But she tasked me to do this, and I thought to myself, I really should write a book. I'm a published poet. I really love sports. It's a lifelong dream to be a sports writer, and this all came to be because of that conversation. I went out after the season and sought a publisher and found one and made it happen. So I will also take you through my publishing career. We'll set some goals and expectations for the course. I will offer a short history of publishing. I think all of you need to go out and on your own really find out about this profession, where it started, where it's going. It's always good to have a sense of even the things that have persisted for centuries that are still in play in publishing. We'll talk a little bit about the differences between books and journals, the size of the information industry and the book publishing industry. So we'll go over some attributes I like to do with content. What is happening with content these days? Books, journals, references, magazine articles, journal articles. What's happening there? Also, I think for me, one of the most important parts of this course is professional development, and that I impart to you my knowledge, but also help you develop skills necessary for you to excel in this profession. And it's good to have a solid grounding in the profession. This is a fascinating business that has been around for the better part of 3,000 years and has evolved and developed with the hunger for knowledge as civilizations tried to order and chronicle the unfolding world around them. Record keeping and expenditures needed to be tracked and recorded, and that was one of the first things that publishing helped solve. And where are we today with books and journals? We're going to go over that. What are their similarities and differences? What is the size of this industry we're talking about? We're going to be talking about all aspects of it: professional and scholarly, trade, scientific, all aspect and all corners of the industry will be covered. What's happening with ebooks? And as I said, you need to leave this class with some resources for professional development and some knowledge of the competencies needed to excel in the profession. You are the next generation of publishing leaders, and I want to help you get there. Uh, I really want to encourage you in this class to have fun. I don't want you stressing over grades. I'm going to tell you right now, if you put the effort in, put 100% of effort, and you try your best, and you meet me halfway, you're going to do fine. I've worked in publishing for 28 years and started out getting a degree in poetry from Columbia University. My first work-study job was with the Echo Press, which is now a division of HarperCollins, and I was working for Daniel Halpern. I then moved over to Columbia University Press as a junior copywriter, making $12,500 per year. And then I became a senior copywriter, wrote jacket copy, catalogs, and space ads for books on deconstructionism, history, and Neo-Confucianism, above Mama Joy's Delicatessen on 112th and Broadway. And if you watched Seinfeld, it was on the same side of the street and in the same structure as Tom's Diner. With an MFA in poetry, I headed to Greenwich Village to work as a senior copywriter for Allen R. Liss, which was purchased by John Wiley and Sons, and I was now out of a job. Allen had worked at Plenum Press as an editor and took his Rolodex and started publishing life science books under his own imprint, and then he sold that and became a very wealthy man. But it just shows you that there's this opportunities that you have to really create something within the publishing industry. As I said, I was laid off and in a week was a product manager at Springer Verlag, working in the journals department. Springer was a scientific, technical, and medical company located in the Flatiron Building. I worked my way up to marketing manager and through a friend got a job at a company called Chapman and Hall in 1993, and they were trying to make their mark in North America on the journal side. Chapman and Hall was the first publisher of Charles Dickens. I was marketing manager, then journals publisher, and evolved into the director of electronic publishing. Chapman and Hall was purchased by Wolters Kluwer in 1997, and I find myself back in a marketing role at the American Chemical Society, whose journals were just being published online. And the reason I went to the American Chemical Society was because they published the best journals in the field, and I wanted to be with the best publications in any given field. There I built a sales force, expanded access around the world, and grew the business from 45 million to more than 100 million in a decade. The business transformed itself from a 100% print-based operation in 1997 to a mostly digital end-to-end operation by 2008, including revenues and production and communicating with customers. It was all done digitally. I went from there back to books to gain experience as a book publisher for the American Society for Training and Development. 2010, I took a job at Project Muse to work again with electronic journals. We have a database of more than 600 journals and 25,000 ebooks in humanities and social sciences. I also work as a freelance writer and a journalist in my spare time, and am an adjunct professor, as you know, at George Washington University. And I very much look forward to being there for you as we go through this course. So don't hesitate to contact me if you have any questions or concerns. And I wish you good luck and hope you enjoy this first lecture. You've picked a great time to take part in a graduate publishing program. There are so many things to study about what's happening in publishing. And when you think about it, for 400 years or more, things were pretty stable in the print world, and now there's lots of volatility, lots of disaggregation, lots of very interesting phenomenon occurring, and it's a very exciting place to be when you think about publishing content. Not a week goes by without an article about how publishers are dealing with Amazon, how they're dealing with technology, how they're trying to reinvent their print business, how they're trying to sell more books, how Google is playing a role in the discoverability of this content. There's a very public battle going on between Amazon and a publishing company called Hachette about the discount structure of Amazon. And I work at the Johns Hopkins University Press, and we've also had a recent dispute with Amazon that has lasted a very long time, and we've just resolved it, having to do with discount structures and trying to get more margin back to be able to publish books, because what happened in the beginning was that Amazon was a channel, was a very small portion of the market, and now it has grown to really become the primary channel for publishers, but at a much less of a price. So how do you make that work? And that's what these disputes are about. It's very much taking margin back, trying to wrest margin back to the publisher. And Amazon is very wise and crafty, and they got into publishing because they noticed that there was not a lot of rigor to the business side of it. There's always been a perception that publishing is a very collegial profession. It's about networks and relationships and publisher lunches and developing that relationship between an editor and an author, where largely that's becoming a thing of the past. It still exists, but it's moving into a different realm. And I was talking recently to an editor at Simon & Schuster who was saying to me, I was hired to publish academic scholarly books, scholarly trade books, and really what we want to talk about is, do you have any, did he have connections with Billy Ray Cyrus so that he could do like a country Christmas book? And that's really what they're interested in these days, the big publishing firms. Where's that next bestseller coming from? And that's displaced a lot of authors. That's also provided opportunity for new players. So there's a lot going on within the landscape. And there's one little excerpt that I want to share with you, coming from the article about the writers battling Amazon. The latest uproar in Amazon's 3-month public battle with Hachette comes at a vulnerable moment for the internet giant, which is rapidly transforming itself into an empire that not only sells culture but creates it too. And Amazon does not want to be seen as hostile to content creators, one of the 4 groups it says on its investor relations webpage it is expressly set up to serve. But it also has to price their creations cheaply enough to draw hordes of consumers, while at the same time making enough profit to satisfy investors. And the publishers on the other side need to make enough money to be in 2 formats, to publish both ebooks and to publish print books, and they're also having to make investments in technology that they didn't have to make. So something has got to give, and this will be a great topic for us to explore and discuss as the semester progresses. Here are the goals and expectations of the course, which can be found in the course syllabus on Blackboard. I would encourage you to familiarize yourself with the course syllabus and the assignments and projects that are posted there. You will complete 5 assignments, take 2 exams, and complete 3 projects over the course of the semester. My expectation is that the assignments and projects will be turned in on time and will be free of grammatical errors and spelling mistakes. I'd like us to use the discussion board as our nexus for community-based interactions. Working in publishing for me has been exciting, creative, and fun. One of my main goals is to teach you the fundamentals of the publishing business. You need to leave this class with an understanding of what goes on in the whole company, the nuts and bolts and the details of the projects and schedules, to make yourselves more valuable as you go along in your career. Aligning financial goals with the mission of the organization will ensure its success. Your ability to grasp the basics of a profit and loss statement will allow you to better understand your contribution to the enterprise. Is your company completely profit-driven, or is there a mission-based component? We will gain experience in proposing projects and evaluating them. What are the critical aspects and attributes of a project that will determine its success? It's one thing to conceive and publish projects, but they also need to be distributed and marketed well to their audiences. We will review the components of a marketing plan. We will describe the basic steps of the publishing process and how these workflows are changing. Publishing is changing rapidly, as we talked about before, almost every day, and it is important to understand the forces of Google and Amazon that are driving this change. The migration from print to web has happened to journals, and it is just beginning for books. Back in 1998, we were encouraged to experiment, to make mistakes, and embrace change. This change is beginning to take hold now within book publishing. The technology of the ebook is more sophisticated than the emergence of journals on the web, and more challenges need to be solved, such as the discoverability of this content. Your ability to communicate effectively in presentations and on the page to your peers and colleagues and your superiors will relate directly to the success you achieve. We will work on developing good written communication skills in this course. Your ability to present clear ideas and gain consensus among your colleagues is an important concern. Good luck, and I look forward to working very closely with you during the semester. Here is a look at a fairly traditional organizational structure that exists today within book and journal publishing firms. There is usually a president who has worked his or her way up through the ranks of one of the departments below. Presidents and directors come from editorial, marketing, or finance these days, depending on the goals and the needs of the organization. If it has been losing money, then a CFO is a good choice. If it is driven by content, then the editor-in-chief is a good choice to lead the organization. Moving from left and right, we will go through the course from book and journal editorial, where content is acquired. Editorial is the lifeblood of any entity and where the majority of the financial resources reside, investments in future publications. Editorial is closely related to production and that experience that the author has with the production staff. We will look at production next and editing and the mechanisms in play to bring the content into the world. We will look at how books and journals are being marketed both in paper and digitally, and how engagement has become a catchword when thinking about social media strategies within publishing firms. Technology is a primary driver of disruptive change within publishing. The Chief Information Officer sits on the cutting edge of a publishing firm that is quickly becoming a software company. There is the docket of digital projects in process, and a prioritization, and a future in which much of the business will need to change to embrace that. This will be a thread that intertwines with all of our discussions. These projects, as well as everything else, needs to be funded and analyzed before it becomes a project. Finance weighs in heavily here. We will examine the book and journal company's portfolio to gain a better understanding of how resources are allocated and what strategies are in play. From my experience, companies are either editorially driven or marketing driven, and in some there is a healthy tension between both. There are other firms that are aligning these resources around disciplines and product lines and have broken out of the centralized approach. Product teams sit together and meet cross-functionally to take advantage of synergies and to explore specific markets. Editorially driven companies have made the decision that content is the king, that authors are the most important customers, and that resources will be deployed to ensure that the pipeline is filled with high-quality projects. Too much of a weighting in this direction can put innovation on hold. Web publishers are primarily marketing driven in my experience, given that interaction between the reader and his or her screen. Functionality and navigation are value-added marketing tools, and the site design appeals to a market-driven sensibility. And the thingness or quidditas of the printed book and the journal exists in the ether by facsimile on the web and not with the tactile physical object. And that's the biggest change for web publishing. And there's a lot of discussion around is a PDF good enough? Is the HTML good enough? Is the EPUB good enough to really be a publication and allow the author to gain tenure, to gain the prestige that is needed? The days of the hand-holding manuscript editor are largely over, as is the 3 Martini publisher lunch. It's a much more fast-paced business, with project managers playing a more integral role. Project management is a term that has entered the lexicon more fully in the last 10 years, and it is here to stay for aggressive firms who are reinventing themselves via technology. And we've arrived at the end of this section of the learning unit. It's important for all of us to have a working knowledge of the history of publishing. If you're going to be in this profession, it's recommended that you understand its history and to see how things that have happened in the beginning continued to influence what's happening today. In this section, we will explore a short history of book and journal publishing and look at the technological advancements and their impact on the industry today. 2 key drivers influencing change in publishing throughout history are: 1, the ever-increasing demand for knowledge and the more rapid dissemination of it, and 2, that it be accomplished through a financially viable and sustainable model. And I'll share with you a quote that I like that'll help set the stage. Johannes Gutenberg, inventor of the printing press, successfully transformed the moribund print shop into the first major publishing business. The publishing of literally millions of copies of books printed from cast type in the last third of the 15th century attests to the volume of society's pent-up demand for book information and the success of the printing press in supplying it. It was transformational, as many things since then have been, but for 400 years things were relatively stable because of Gutenberg. Here are the factors that have influenced the evolution of the book throughout history: the ever-increasing demand for information and more rapid dissemination, access to technology, capacity, organizational capacity, getting the new form of communication to mesh with existing systems, financial viability, and those are just some. But the interesting thing about the Seth Godin quote is that it could apply to both the ebook and cave drawings. I mean, it's the exact same thing, and it's very interesting that in all of these advances, it was the societal thirst for knowledge and discovery that drove them. Here's a short history of book publishing. And it started with the clay tablet. You've got the papyrus roll, the codex, and largely we still have the codex now. Paper bound between two covers. Printing, steam power, which led to really the mass production of print. Offset printing, which revolutionized the industry, and where we are today with ebooks or electronic books, which started with Project Gutenberg in 1971. I want to start with a quote for this slide by Frederick Kilgore in The Evolution of the Book. Over the last 5,000 years, there have been 4 transformations of the book in which each manifestation has differed from its predecessors in shape and structure. The successive, sometimes overlapping, forms were the clay tablet inscribed with a stylus, 2500 BC to AD 100, the papyrus roll written on with a brush or a pen from 2000 BC to 700 AD, the codex, leaves bound between two covers, originally inscribed with pen, 100 AD, and the electronic book, currently in the process of evolution and innovation. There have also been 3 transformations in method and power application in reproducing the codex. Machine printing from cast type toward powered by human muscle, 1455 to 1814. Non-human power driving both presses and typecasting machines, 1814 to 1970. And computer-driven photocomposition combined with offset printing in 1970 and through to today. Extremely long periods of stability characterized the first 3 shapes of the book. Clay tablets and papyrus roll books existed for 2,500 years, and the codex for 2,000. Gutenberg's Bible was a groundbreaking moment in the history of publishing, and the spread of religious content played a major role in the early manifestations of the book. Gutenberg provided that the act of writing could be mechanized. His Bible ended up losing money, and his financier Johannes Fust took over the printing shop. From the clay tablet to the e-book, speed, profitability, and the advancement of knowledge drove change. Here is a very short history of journals, and we'll be covering academic journals in much more detail in the weeks ahead. And what we're talking about here is an academic journal is a peer-reviewed periodical in which scholarship relating to a particular academic discipline is published. And this whole industry started in 1665 with the Journal des Savants in Paris and the Philosophical Transactions of the Royal Society. These were mainly published by societies and nonprofits. They really were launched to summarize the glut of books in specialized subjects and fields, and exploded towards the end of the 19th century, and were always mass-produced on the cheapest materials. And so they were, from the beginning, journals profit-driven at their core. The explosion of scientific knowledge really led to the big major publications that we still have, Science, Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, Nature, and they started publishing breakthroughs in research, and those were happening in more rapid fashion in the late 1800s and into the first 4 or 5 decades of this new century. Robert Maxwell was a big player in the commercialization of scholarly journals, making them, the reason they are so expensive today is that Robert Maxwell, who was at Pergamon, which became Elsevier, and Springer Verlag and some other big scientific, technical, and medical companies really acquired so many of these titles and priced them at such high prices that many of the library budgets even today are tied up in them. But this was the beginning of the mass commercialization of journals in the 60s. 1976, the first e-journal prototype appears, And from 1990 to 1995, the modern day electronic journal was born. And we'll go over those, as I said, in much more detail in a lecture in a few weeks. So here we're going to take a look at the book ecosystem, and one of the things that I notice about it immediately is that it's really a step-by-step process with book publishing, both internally and externally into the market. And here we're looking mostly at what happens outside or after the book is published. The diagram is taken from the Wool text, and it helps drive home for me the fact that it's a long and costly way from publisher to reader, and neither know each other very well in this environment. Traditional publishers have had a hard time knowing who is buying their books. The middlemen take significant percentages of the profit, and every time a hand touches a book, it is costly for the publisher, and margin diminishes. Distributors take books on consignment and provide additional services like marketing and co-op displays in bookstores. They will sell to wholesalers. I worked with the National Book Network when I was content director at the American Society for Training and Development, and it was a very costly proposition. We were pretending at the time that we published trade books. Books on training aren't really trade books. And if in any given year, if we made $500,000 in revenues through that channel, it cost us $425,000 to work with them. Lots of buried costs in shipping and reshipping books, and in these marketing co-ops that they would do for us. And Amazon has also taken an ever-increasing slice of the pie from publishers as bookstores have closed. Publishers have tried to renegotiate discounts with Amazon, but this has been very difficult. And Amazon is now hiring acquisition editors and is being aggressive on the content acquisition side. Kindles and e-readers have also changed cash flows to publishers and altered the revenue mix. But this is just an initial look, and there's much more detail in your Wool text if you'd like to go into there and see this, and all the different roles that these kinds of middlemen play to bring the books to market. This is one of my favorite graphics in my close to 30-year career. If books are linear, then journals are organic and cyclical. This slide represents a fully digital end-to-end journal publishing ecosystem. It was the result of a strategic planning exercise for my sales and marketing team at the American Chemical Society. The engine of journal publishing cycle is fueled by usage and discoverability. We looked at ways to enhance every interaction with authors, editors, reviewers, subscribers, contributors, librarians, and readers around the world, all of whom could be the same person. Journal abstracts and metadata are searched and crawled by Google and other search engines. Researchers encounter our content, interact and identify with it, submit a paper, and enter our editorial community and workflow. They may submit a paper through our electronic manuscript submission system and enter the review process. They publish, garner citations, impact factors and usage, and hopefully publish again, having the cycle continue. And if you look at it, what it's really meant to be is the infinite cycle of excellence, that it continues, that usage begets usage. You contribute once, you continue feeding the pipeline with your papers. And if individuals don't subscribe, they can then find the paths to access, speak to their institutions about licensing access, ordering articles, and in setting up access around the world, you could quickly see the number of published papers from a country increase in the years after access is established, because instead of having to wait for the print journals that as they go overseas or international, they could access these articles in real time as they were published. And it was a transformational experience for these researchers. And they became once again familiar with the electronic brand of the ACS and started contributing papers. And when you'd go to these places like Hungary, where they had money for maybe only a couple of publishers, and you'd see that the publishers that they had subscribed to were the ones where their researchers were publishing. And as soon as we were able to establish access, our papers increased and our number of publications from that country increased. This is a simplified history of the print-to-web transition as it applies to scholarly and scientific journals. Before 1995, the world of journals was stable and predictable. We sent our price lists and catalogs in the August time frame for the upcoming year, and all through the fall, orders appeared for the print subscriptions. The marketing was straightforward. We met once a year to talk about the price increase and discuss the cost of paper, postage, and inflation. There was also discussion about what the market would bear. There was one staff person who spoke with the subscription agents and who would tell us what the climate was like. Library budgets were stable then, mostly stable then, and now they are shrinking and decreasing. But we would get a sense of what was going on within the library market at that time. The 80s and 90s were pretty good time for library budgets, and since then, library budgets have not been great. It was all driven by third parties, and we had little, if any, intersection with our customers back then. The print journal world is not unlike the book publishing world in that you don't really know who's using or buying your subscriptions. This changed after 1995 and the emergence of electronic journals. We developed electronic pricing models. We wrote contracts about licensing access to our content. Academic Press, which was eventually purchased by Elsevier, developed the first successful model for web access. They simply added up the number of print copies at an institution and attached an access percentage of 25%, which was later reduced to 15%. This was our first electronic journal pricing model. It was also the first successful library-based access model, and it gave libraries a break on large packages of journals. This is what is known as the big deal. You'll be coming across this terminology when we talk about open access. Our business became 24/7 with electronic publications, and we needed to invest in electronic infrastructures in addition to continuing the investment in print. This is what's largely happening to book publishers today. They're having to become technology companies while also keeping their both feet, or at least one foot, in the print realm. We made sales calls and site visits to customers around the world. In order to free up funds for investment, some book programs had to be discontinued. But this looks at that transition, and it's very interesting to now be in an era when publications are being started without a print version. Pricing models have been decoupled and disaggregated. The emergence of Counter, something that really standardized usage statistics, changed things for libraries in as much as everybody was on a level playing field in terms of how they were counting article downloads. It stands for Counting Online Usage of Networked Electronic Resources. Counter had a tremendous impact on electronic publishing because it gave libraries a way to measure the impact of their collections. They no longer needed to count the number of times a journal was taken off the shelves and reshelved. Usage became a trusted proxy for value. And we continue to be in a digital-only realm, with many publications just now kind of trying to figure out how to meter access, how to charge for access, how to cut down on the number of print copies that they're delivering to the market. And I imagine that print will always be around in some form, but certainly it's very costly to do both things and to also make these investments in technology. And I think in a digital-only environment, the biggest win here is the fact that you're able to know your end users and to really get close to the individuals that are accessing your content. I think we are in the age of the end user now. That's one of the things that you keep hearing is you develop services and you develop products, but what does the end user want, and what will the end user be doing with content 10 years from now? The previous slides have really led us to the differences between books and journals, and perhaps the biggest difference between books and journals is that with books, publishers have difficulty harnessing user behavior or knowing their customers. With most of the activity occurring online, journals can be tracked and measured down to the computer in an institution. With a 12-month publishing schedule for a book, by the time it comes out, the information is likely to be outdated. This is okay for trade books, but those tend to publish faster. In scholarly circles, books are called the long argument and journals the short conversation. The U.S. books business for many publishers, excepting the trade, hasn't yet fully penetrated the global market, while journal articles for many publishers can be accessed around the world and in developing countries. Books are still a one-to-one-to-one, copy-by-copy sale. Access to electronic journals is licensed by entire countries. Books have largely been impacted by Amazon and to some extent Google, while journals are mostly impacted and dependent on the referral traffic generated by Google. These are some rough generalizations to keep in mind as we move through the course. Here's a look at what is happening in the publishing industry from a revenue standpoint. We will first examine the information industry overall, and then drill down into scholarly and trade and professional publishing. This chart forecasts cumulative annual growth, or CAGR as it's called, from 2010 through 2013. As you'll see, search aggregation and content syndication is slated to grow by 8%. Scientific, technical, and medical information will see modest growth, and publishing overall is slated to decline by 3.8% in 2013. And we will have new numbers for 2013 any day now from some sources, and I'll be sharing those with you later in the semester. We're talking still about the information industry here, and when you consider all of the components on the previous slide, it encompasses anywhere from $360 to $397 billion. And the low point, as you see with the economic collapse, is 2009, where it dropped to $367 billion, and it's slated to grow to $393 billion by 2013. Well, the good news is that there is some growth anticipated. And when you think about scholarly and academic publishing, especially university presses, flat would be a welcome result. If revenues were flat from year to year, that would be something that would be looked upon as a big success. And that's just where we are right now for book publishing. Flat is the new normal for information industry, but also for book publishing, and if that's the case, it's also probably welcome news for some firms. Here we're looking at book publishing, specifically trade, K through 12 and higher ed, and professional and scholarly. And net sales overall were $27.1 billion in 2012. This is a 1% decline in book revenue from 2011 and a 3% decline from 2010. Despite the decrease in net dollar revenue, the number of books sold in 2012 increased by 200 million units when compared to 2011. This speaks to the continued migration to ebooks and continued downward price pressure. The three major categories, and when you look at those, trade is the largest, and some categories of trade are growing, especially adult fiction. Others are not. K through 12 and higher ed is the next largest, and K through 12 is getting slammed right now. Higher education is flat. Professional and scholarly is the smallest, and professional publishing has also been decreasing in recent years, but scholarly publishing is holding its own. This graphic from Balker illustrates growing market share of e-commerce, which includes Amazon and other online retailers, such as BNN.com. The market share of this segment has jumped from 25.1% in 2010 to 43.8% in 2012. Chain stores lost a lot of market share in the same period, reflecting the collapse of Borders and other independent booksellers. Market share of independents grew from 2.4% to 3.7% from 2010 to 2011, as empty Borders storefronts with attractive lease options provide opportunities for enterprising booksellers in a variety of markets. But this is very interesting when you see the rise of e-commerce, and it's happening, but publishers are not able to reconstruct their workflows to recognize the efficiencies that might be available with this. And they're still investing heavily on the print side. So when your books and the number of books that you're selling are being sold for less on a price per unit basis, then you've got an issue internally to work out, and it becomes much more difficult to remain profitable. Now that we've talked a little bit about revenues and the size of the industry, during this course, all of you are going to have the chance to be publishers, and you're going to ask yourselves the question, what am I going to publish? And I'd like to spend the next few slides talking about content and what it means to me, and also maybe what it means to you, to spark some interest in what are the things that you respond to, what are the brands and the sources that you go to for your content. Let's talk a little bit about the core values of content. And really, what is it that makes content good? Is it quality, or is good enough okay? There have been plenty of businesses that have been built upon the premise that good enough in large quantities is okay, and we'll be exploring those. Brand and sometimes publisher and writer make a difference for me. Trusted sources of content like the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal will capture my attention. When it comes to publishing, I gravitate towards sites like The Scholarly Kitchen or Peter Brantley's blog on Publishers Weekly and Jennifer Howard's writing for the Chronicle of Higher Education. Author as brand is also a key factor for me. The immediacy, currency, and timeliness of the content also plays a role. I'll shy away from older stuff just by nature. I mainly read the Washington Post because it's not behind a paywall. And consider this quote from a comments section on Google Books. The merchandise of the information economy is not information, it is attention. These commodities have an inverse relationship. When information is cheap, attention becomes expensive. Attention is what we, the users, give to Google, and our attention is what Google sells, concentrated, focused, and crystallized. Something to consider here, but also develop for yourself. What are the factors that you're doing to filter and um, include certain types of content over other versions? The reason we use the word content is because format is becoming agnostic as we move along, or neutral. Um, you know, books, the codex, ebooks, journals, reference works, primary sources, secondary sources, monographs, we're all really just talking about content, especially when it is digital. And the format just becomes a different package to receive it in. And really at its core, it's content, or what are the units of content that we respond to? Are they chapters? Are they articles? Are they snippets? Are they abstracts? So this is something as we go along to keep in mind for yourself in developing your own skills as an editor, as a publisher, as a marketer, and as a production professional. As we delve further into the evolving information economy, formats are melting away, and books are next up to experience this transition. What is going to happen with digital textbooks? Models are morphing and changing. Will print go away completely? Probably not. The Codex has proved its staying power. Amazon has emerged from being just another retail channel to become the dominant player. Change will continue, and we need to play a leadership role in the revolution. And that means you. From this point forward, I want you to take an active leadership role in changing the profession of publishing. You've come to this program with a skill set, and I want you to develop that skill set and become part of the change that is happening. We have close to 30,000 ebooks on Project Muse, along with more than 600 journals. It's a database of chapters and articles, and publishers want to talk about the price per title. These are chapter level PDFs, not whole continuous books. An example of the old model in Mindstead, still in play. It's not a direct comparison. One is not replacing the other. It may be enhancing it and making it more relevant and discoverable. We always hear that university press content is not valuable from libraries. At least they didn't have evidence that showed that in the print form that these books were being used. But now, after having 2 years of thousands of ebooks online, we can say that over 75% of our books digitally are being used. Price per title should reflect that this book was not mailed from a warehouse. It was not printed or shipped to a destination. It wasn't bound or manufactured. A digital book doesn't have these cost attributes to them, so it's really not a fair comparison. The one thing is for certain, though, change will continue to happen, and it's always been a part of my career to be a part of that change, and I feel very fortunate to have been on the cutting edge in many of the positions that I've held. Everything in the electronic journal business is measurable. Customers and their preferences can be tracked, usage can be analyzed. On the book side, publishers have trouble tracking their buyers. When you think about that slide where we showed wholesalers and distributors, went from the author to the consumer, there's no real way to capture what is going on at the end. For journals, usage and discoverability have replaced subscriptions. And this was a mindset change that happened between 2000 and 2005, where journal editors who kept asking about circulation finally realized that it meant more to know how many article downloads were happening for an electronic journal and where those article downloads were occurring. So you were able to give country data and article level download data. And that was very transformational in that it moved and changed the mindset from print circulation to usage and online usage and article downloads and countrywide access and what parts of the world were using this content. Online advertising continues to struggle. That's something that hasn't been able to replace print advertising yet. So there's a lot of tension in that dynamic. The transformation from print to web for journals began in the late 1990s, and it continues to evolve today. And it's much more straightforward than what's happening with ebooks. There weren't Kindles and other, reading devices back when we first put journals online. There's so many more choices for the consumer and for the library to purchase ebook content. It just made more sense for libraries and to access large amounts of journal content at the beginning. Open access will continue to have an impact for publishers, societies, and editorial boards, and it's based on the premise that when we started putting content online, there was this idea that the internet is free and that all content yearns to be free, especially content that has been paid for by taxpayer-funded research. So that's a pretty good argument to say that if the taxpayers have paid to have this research come to light, then why is it going behind a paywall, and why is the charge so expensive for it? So if I'm looking for information on a medical condition and I've got to pay $40 to download an article, I may or may not have the resources to do that. Also, this content, a lot of it's being generated within universities who are then turning around and buying this content back from publishers. So there's an argument as to why should they have to do that, and that's why you see lots of libraries around the world starting to become publishers, lots of university libraries. The big scientific, technical, and medical journal packages are under the threat of cancellation because they've just become so large a part of these library budgets that they're not even allowed to buy content in the humanities and social sciences because they just don't have the resources to do it. So as we move forward in the landscape, these issues are very much continuing to foster discussion and debate as to how we can change the model, and that is something also that we'll cover when we talk about pricing and licensing. Here's a tag cloud of terms that we will be using over the next 12 weeks. Technology has greatly expanded the terms that publishers use. Software development is something publishers are embracing. New product development, readers becoming end users, having a startup mentality. Testing environments are all becoming routine in publishing. Content packages, virtual collections, customization, crowdsourced books are all a part of the customization that is coming. In the meantime, we need to grasp the fundamentals to be able to understand what is going on today. This, for me, is the most important part of this course, your professional development. And I would like you to leave this class feeling like you've been able to grow professionally and to develop and enhance your skill set to the point where you can become a leader in publishing. As we go through the course, we'll incorporate the competencies needed to excel in each area. And I'll also throw out there that I'm available to advise from a career perspective. Just drop me an email or give me a phone call. You will see in some of the lectures a career path, and that's there to show you what the progression is from position to position. It's important to know a publishing company's structure to see where the resources are and what the focus is. It's often said that this is a profession filled with English majors, and you need to be able to write effectively and to communicate your ideas on the written page well to excel in publishing. It's also important to present and to be able to give cogent and clear presentations, both on the page and in person. And we'll be working on those things in your assignments, and we're going to have a lot of fun this semester. And as I said, I really am focused on making sure you leave this course with some tools to help you grow professionally. Here's a sampling of some organizations that I belong to. They all offer training, and their offerings vary in quality. Their annual meetings are mainly a chance to network with colleagues. The Society for Scholarly Publishing, or SSP, is generally known as a journals meeting. The Association of American Publishers, the Professional and Scholarly Publishers, and the Association of Learned Professional and Scholarly Publishers are more geared toward government legislation and copyright. And ALPSP is really an international organization that's based in the UK. The American Association of University Presses, AAUP, the American Booksellers Association tend to have more of a focus on books. STM, the STM organization, Scientific, Technical, and Medical Publishing, is focused on related issues to that content for those publishers like Elsevier, Wiley, and Springer, and they meet to discuss the different issues and trends that are affecting their businesses. I would encourage you to familiarize yourselves with these groups because there's a lot of good content on their websites. You can get a sense of what is happening in our profession by just looking at their websites and getting a sense of what's going on. And I encourage you to be inquisitive and to be open to all the possibilities when you're exploring these organizations. With this slide, you can begin to see my vision for what constitutes a publishing competency. And I've done it here through a series of questions. How effective are your communication skills? Can you present a concept or an idea well? Do you embrace change? Do you understand technology? Can you analyze a situation or a product? Do you read? Do you read books, newspapers, or journals? And these skills, to me, are at the core of being successful in publishing. And this semester, the approach that we're going to take is really a case studies approach. We're going to look at different aspects of the industry through the lens of actual examples. I think that's the way that I learn the most in publishing, having lived through those examples. But also, publishing is an experiential profession. And had I known that these were the things that I needed to do at the beginning, I might even be further along than I am now. Internal and external communication skills are critical to your success as a publishing professional. When you're in a meeting, try and participate by asking a question or making a contribution. Make sure your voice is heard and develop your voice. I once supervised a product manager who was effective but very reserved. My boss didn't see the value in the person and wondered why he still had a job. I explained this situation gently to the person. You've got to give a little something back, and in anything we do, that's the basis for what drives me, at least in many situations, is you've got to give something to get something. The person got the message. He took a Toastmasters class to improve his speaking skills, and within 6 weeks my boss was telling me about the change the person had made. Presentations and the ability to do them well is also a skill to develop. Everyone will have their own ritual. Mine is to have at least 3 run-throughs, one cold, one with notes, one as close to showtime as possible. Change is constant in publishing today. Be a part of it, embrace it, be open to the possibility. Understanding how technology can change the business is also a necessary competency because more technology is coming and proliferating. E-books continue to grow in the percentage of sales. E-readers are more powerful with each release. Being able to see a potential in a project, what it can be fully realized, is a skill to develop over time. This will come with experience. Staying on top of your profession by reading is also essential. I've talked a little about my career before, so briefly, here's what I learned at each job. I learned how to write marketing copy at Columbia Press and how to put together marketing materials, jacket copy, brochures, catalogs, subject catalogs, space ads, things like that. How to boil down the essence of a book into a few paragraphs. I learned how to develop journal marketing plans at Springer. And by the way, does anyone know why the Springer logo is a horse? Well, it's a chess piece. The company originally began because there were no good books on chess. And that's what I want you to do when you're starting your own publishing company in this class and developing a mission statement and presenting projects, is to really think about what's lacking in the market? What kind of content does the market need, or does a certain audience need that's not there now? I just think it would be interesting for all of us to think about that. I learned how to make presentations, was on the cutting edge of electronic publishing at Chapman and Hall, focused totally on journals. I developed analytical skills in assessing journal projects and making presentations to editorial boards and to societies to get those publications. At the American Chemical Society, I developed sales skills, and I think sales skills are very important. I think a lot of what happens in publishing is sales based. When you're thinking about acquiring content from an author or bringing that author through from concept to publication, even production or marketing, you really need to have a service-based mentality that's really at the core of the fundamentals of marketing. It's not what you traditionally think of sales or used car salesmen, but most, if not all, aspects of this business have to do with relationships and building relationships and developing relationships. And when you think about a 10 or 20-year relationship with an author and how many books you've actually published with them, that's really at the core of that. There's some sales and some relationship building going on. So I don't want to minimize that. I also learned to embrace change there and to understand technology and how technology can transform a business. I learned about leadership as well, and being a leader within publishing is very important to me. At the American Society for Training and Development, I relearned how to acquire books and build a traditional publishing list and program, and it was very much nuts and bolts book publishing experience for me there. And at Project Muse, I'm able to use all of these skills equally. There are 200 publishers that I work with every day. I get to see the landscape of publishing from many different perspectives. We have ebooks, we have journals, we have reference content. We recently put up the prose for the first time of T.S. Eliot. And so a lot of exciting things are happening. And in this job, I'm able to utilize my writing skills in any way that I need to, my presentation skills and my leadership skills. And really, when you're doing that, there's nothing more satisfying in this profession than being able to maximize the skills that you have. And so with that, I want to encourage you to be all in this semester. We're going to have a lot of fun, and it'll be great to get to know you. And don't hesitate to contact me if you want to talk about your career, if you have any questions about what we'll be studying. I'm available to you, and I'm very fortunate to be the person that you meet on the first part of your journey into this program. So with that, I will say good luck, and we will be in touch. And really, I want you to have fun this semester and have fun in this course, and communicate with each other, build your own community. That's another really important thing about this program, is that you are the students and you make this the community that you want to make it. And with that, I'll just say good luck, and we'll be in touch.